With us right here at Lookuptv. This is the Morning Drift. The hashtag is the Morning Drift. Talk to us online. Our conversation this morning is the build-up to the International Women's Day, which is celebrated tomorrow. That is on the 8th of March 2024. A day would ask the questions on what can be done for women to participate correctly in local politics in the country. A time when we're looking at the numbers not agreeing with what they should be. A time when the National Assembly is trying to find a footing to meet the two-third gender rule. Is it going to be a possibility, or this is something that we are trying to catch a grab of, but eluding us as fast as it has? We talk about that this morning. We'll be introducing our subject once we come back to it. For now, let's take a tiny break and take a look at what it is that you're waking up to this morning on your day list. Let's take a look at the Daily Nation this morning. It is all about illicit brew in the country. The headline here for the Daily Nation is Fighting the Bottle. And the Interior Ministry has come up with those particular guidelines that are going to guide the industry all the way from licenses being renewed afresh and manufacturers in the country reporting illicit brew in the country. We're going to read that story on page 7. There is a story on page 4 on an acid test for Raila ahead of ODM elections. We do know that at this particular time, the conversations within that particular party is succession politics. And indeed, if they do hold those elections in April, then the question of where Raila Odinga stands in his quest for the top AU Commission chair job would be heavily be an issue to be considered. Teachers also are demanding audit of new TSC promotions. Union allege corruption and favoritism. That story has been covered on page 3. And doctors have issued another 7-day strike notice over the CBA and the CS Health. Nyakuminchi has already spoken about it, saying that they do not have money in the health ministry to pay intern doctors in the country. The story has been covered on page 2. The amount of money that doctors want is 425 billion in total. On the back page, you're going to read about police deployment in question as the Haiti situation worsens. And President Ruto and the Haiti leader signed an agreement to facilitate the deployment of 1,000 Kenya police officers in that state. I'm going to read that story heavily on the back page. Let's cross over to the Standard this morning. The Standard is talking about all-out war on alcohol abuse. Same story. You're going to read that story on page 8 and 9. Twist as the best lands court judge in a 2020 faces axe. You're going to read that story on page 12. And Haiti inside the vicious gangland. You're going to read that story on page 6 and 7. A dead economy costs lost industries, pages 12 and 13. And there's a story here that you're going to read at the back page of the Standard on essentially sports, on Mary Ketani's women only record faces the biggest threat. And you're going to read that story on the back page of the Standard. Nothing much really on the Standard this morning in terms of major stories that have also been covered on the Daily Nation. We cross over to the Business Daily. There's a story here I'm going to read on Tallow Oil that has been sued for 284 billion over environment violence. And the story here is also, you're going to read that story on the front page of the Daily Nation, the Business Daily, all the way to page 2. And banks have drawn 332 billion CBK emergency loans in 2 months, showing you just how pressed the banks are as well, because that CPK emergency kitty is usually considered as the last resort for majority of lenders in the country. Good news though, yesterday NSE 20 share index ended at 0.39% on the positive, all share almost 1% on the positive, 0.99% to be exact. That's your newspapers this morning. Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki has ordered closure of bars and other outlets within residential areas and other areas that are bound education institutions, terming the current issued licenses to bars as null and void. Speaking at the Deputy President residence, the CS announced tough measures aiming to cap consumption of illicit brews and drug substances. Let's take a look.
Illicit brews, drugs and substance abuse, majorly among teenagers, the youth, and even the elderly, are not only a grave social concern, but is now an existential threat to the well-being and sustainable future of our country.
Tough times ahead for distributors, manufacturers and promoters of illicit brew and drug and substance abuses after Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki announced tough measures aiming to curb consumption of drugs, among them closure of bars and other outlets within residential areas and around basic education institutions. Kindiki terming the currently issued licenses to bars as null and void.
Any licenses currently issued to bars and other outlets, premises by county governments that are contrary to the provisions of the Alcoholic Drinks and Control Act, especially as relates to licensing premises within residential areas and around basic educational institutions, are declared null and void.
In the new measures put, all licenses issued by Kenya Revenue Authority and KEBS stand suspended. All existing valid licenses will be vetted afresh within 21 days, with premises approved to resume operations only upon receipt of fresh approval. All manufacturers shall establish and document all traders in their distribution chain. No bars or alcohol outlets shall be allowed to operate beyond the stipulated operation areas. Failure to adhere to the direction, the operation shall be fined or imprisoned as provided by the law. All landlords or premises owners shall be deemed aiders and held liable for renting out space for establishment of bars. All chemists and aggravates to submit their licenses to the Pharmacy and Poisons Board for verification within 30 days. All unlicensed drug manufacturers to be shut down immediately. All vehicles used in storage, manufacturing and trafficking of illegal drugs shall be ceased to be government property. Kindiki adding that any establishment found in breach of provision shall be shut down. County security teams are required to enforce this prescription without fail.
And therefore, this war that we announce commencing today is a war about the future of Kenya.
Tough times ahead for distillers, distributors and regulators of illicit brew. This is after the government, in partnership with the Ministry of Interior, put up measures aiming to curb the use of illicit brew. Mavin Getembe reporting for Lookuptv from the DP residence, Nairobi.
The national government has now declared the persistent problem of illicit brew as a threat to the country's security. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has affirmed that going forward, President RUTO's administration will not allow more deaths from the killer brew. The government has furthermore directed security patrol along the Kenyan borders be heightened to curb smuggling in the country of ethanol, cannabis sativa and other drugs. On Retender with more this morning.
The recent 23 deaths as a result of illicit brew in Mwea, Kirinyaga County have now gotten the government seriously talking. a high-profile security meeting that brought together Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, Security Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki, and top security officers in the National Police Service was held today. At the end of it, the team had taken a stand.
The matter of drug and substance abuse has reached alarming proportions and is no longer a social issue but a serious threat to our national security. The government has therefore decided that this matter will be dealt with as an existential threat to the very existence of our republic.
Today's meeting revealed mismanagement of the liquor licensing process, the national government directing an accusing finger towards the devolved units for not carrying out due diligence in the exercise.
There has been challenges of enforcement. There has been challenges of licensing. And the problem has evolved into a serious national security threat. To start with the advent of devolution, the 2010 Constitution conferred the powers to license alcoholic drinks to the counties, and that responsibility was being done by NACADA and the national government in a very responsible manner. Since the advent of devolution, counties have licensed almost every other establishment in our market centers and trading centers across the country to be an establishment for the sale of alcohol.
Kajiado County and the Namanga border have been cited as a preferred conduit by criminals to smuggle ethanol and other contraband goods in the county. Isabani and Migori County and counties of Busia, Bungoma, Marsabit, Isiolo, Moyale receiving special attention as an avenue for smuggling cannabis sativa.
And those contraband goods are coming to this country to kill our people when you are there. You are in uniform, you have the law on your side, and you simply don't do what you need to do. I'm telling you on behalf of the President and the government of the Republic of Kenya, it will not be business as usual. And when those goods come to this country, you shall be held responsible.
The government says enough is enough. It will not sit back and watch its people lose lives to illicit brew and drug menace. Henry Tende, Lookuptv.
Politician and a Bishop Margaret Wanjiru of the Jesus is Alive Ministries has accused the government operatives of illegally demolishing her church and subsequently injuring her. The bishop has also accused the Kenya Kwanza government of turning its back on her despite her spirited campaigns in the previous general election.
Kuna Mungu mbinguni. Vile mnasemanga nyinyi kwa serikali kuna Mungu mbinguni, hata kwetu kwa makanisa kuna Mungu mbinguni. If anybody in Kenya Kwanza government can dare touch my properties, je, na wale raia wenye hawana mtu wa kuwasaidia? Wale raia wenye hawana mwenyewe? If Jesus is Alive Ministries is under attack today, how about the common mwananchi? Tutahamia wapi? Tutaenda wapi? Serikali yetu yenyewe ndio inatupiga. Where are we going to go? Where are we going to run? Mimi mwenyewe nimesalimia watu wa DCIO hapa nikawaambia karibuni mtuokolee. Kumbe they are coming to reinforce their NIS brothers. Alafu wakaitana wengine. So you can really see tumefika place where sisi ndio hatuna mtu wa kutusaidia ama mahali ya kukimbilia. Lakini kuna Mungu mbinguni, wacha tuone. My message to the president is that he needs to stop land grabbing in this country. He needs also to respect some of us who campaigned and worked for him and who pray for him and still work for him. They have to be dialogue. If they say they have been sent by the Kenya Railways, can the MD of Kenya Railways come and tell us what is happening? They need to be dialogue. Why are they doing what they are doing? They cannot come like hooligans, like thugs. Since when did security agencies become hooligans and thugs?
So that's a direct message to the president to stop land grabbing. Yeah. And she says they were friends and she gave them a platform. And she was among the first people who started the Kenya Kwanza narrative in the country. Talk of Politics 101. Now, the law enforcement officers in Naivasha have arrested 9 suspects and recovered stolen vehicles, including 3 vans, in an operation that led to the arrest of 9 suspects. Deputy Commissioner Mutua Kisilu of Nakuru County revealed that car theft has become a chronic issue in the region, urging residents to collaborate with authorities to bolster security in the area.
As cases of theft continue to plague residents of Nakuru County, an operation led by Naivasha police yielded significant results with the apprehension of 9 suspects connected to the thefts. According to reports, rampant car thefts have plagued Naivasha, prompting concerted efforts by security forces to combat the issue. According to Naivasha Deputy County Commissioner, the joint efforts of residents and police have led to recovery of 2 vehicles within Nakuru vicinity, with a trailer found abandoned along the Nairobi-Nakuru highway.
Tuna magari matatu ijapokuwa mawili yote ambayo yaliimbiwa katika siku tofauti katika mwezi wa pili. Moja lilimbiwa tarehe 14 mwezi wa pili, ile Dualis. Fiuda ikaibiwa tarehe 14, lakini zote yamekuwa recovered kwa sababu ya effort ya officers wetu pamoja na ripoti ambazo tumeweza kupata kwa raia wema. Hapo chini mnaona kuna recovery ya TV nyingi ambazo ziko hapo, runinga nyingi na certain items zote ambazo hizi zilimeibiwa Naivasha na kukua recover Naivasha. Wenye haya magari wengine waliumizwa kama mwenye Fiuda alivunjwa miguu.
Commending the collaborative efforts of law enforcement agencies, Deputy County Commissioner Mutua Kasili underscored the importance of community involvement in enhancing security measures. However, he also confirmed that the suspects involved in the thefts have been arraigned in court, emphasizing the need for thorough investigations into the use of police-like uniforms by the perpetrators.
Bila shaka kuna watu wameshikwa na simu moja, wengi kila gari kuna suspects wako, wengine wameenda kotini tayari. Bado ni uchunguzi because kuna unajua watu wakisema ni police uniform lazima udhibitisha kama kweli ni police uniform ama ni kufanana zile zimenunua. Maana soko sasa zinauzwa mangwada ambayo yanafanana kabisa na ya polisi. Na kama kweli yanatoka kwa askari wetu bila shaka tunaweza kujua, lakini I can assure you hajatoka amongst our police officers.
Area OCPD Stephen Kirui reiterated the commitment of law enforcement to prosecute those responsible for the thefts, assuring residents that the operation will continue until security is significantly improved in the area.
4 suspects walipelekwa kotini na wakachukua plea, wengine walishindwa kulipa hizo bond, wako bado remand. We are still looking for more suspects, especially for those robberies. We have a prime suspect for the filter vehicle. We are still pursuing him.
Martin Masharia, Lookuptv.
The Honourable Member of Parliament Ndidi Nyoro has stated that the nation's GDP is expected to increase, with figures from global institutions such as the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund indicating the margins. Speaking at a parliamentary sanction on the 2024 budget policy statement, Nyoro further claimed that the Kenyan economy in 2023 grew faster than that of China and the United States of America.
Number 9, motion, report on the 2024 budget policy statement.
As the preparation for the new financial year beginning June takes its course, the budget BPS has proposed that 2.9 billion shillings of the total budget be sourced from taxes, even though MPs feel the committee did not clearly demonstrate how pending bills menace will be addressed. The budget committee has proposed adequate funding meant for the teaching interns, whose fate has been in limbo and now will be absorbed on permanent and pensionable terms in the 2024-2025 budget.
Approves the budget policy statement, that is BPS, for the financial year 2024-2025. B, makes the following financial resolutions with respect to BPS. Roman 1, that the national government budget ceiling be approved at Kenya shillings 2 trillion 564 billion 563 million 100,000, of which the executive gets Kenya shillings 2 trillion 488 billion 650 million.
Mine is to echo on the JSS. Madam Speaker, our youth who are teachers have been sacrificing their time and their energy to teach through hardship and going through the challenges as interns. And I want to say that this time that they should be observed and they should be paid on a permanent and pensionable terms for our JSS teachers to be able to serve.
With a lot of goodies wooing the lawmakers to endorse the BPS, the proposed budget is poised to see an allocation of 14.5 billion shillings returned to the National Assembly, said to be equally divided amongst the 290 constituencies across the country, with 10 billion shillings initially allocated to the counties poised to be reverted back to the National Assembly for overseeing of road networking in the devolved government. Both Kera and Kura and infrastructure as a whole set to reap big in the sums of 15 billion shillings in total. In the proposed budget, with the Rural Electrification and Renewable Energy Corporation poised to receive the biggest chunk of up to 10 billion shillings.
Resolves that the allocation to county government's equitable share be approved at 391 billion 117 million.
MPs raised it as a need that the judiciary ought to be funded to curb corruption and enhance justice delivery, with the Nyoro Committee proposing an additional allocation for the National Government Constituency Development Fund NCDF, National Government Affirmative Action GAF, and Ward Fund. The sector has not been left out either, with Kofi allocated 2 billion shillings.
Swala kuhusu mambo ya pesa ya stima. Mheshimiwa Spika, stima kule tunakotoka wengine wetu ni watu wachache mno ambao wako na stima.
As a result of tremendous milestones made in the information communication technology globally proving inevitable for the country's digital space, MPs felt ICT allocation should be reconsidered to catch up with the global space. The lawmakers opposed to the budget funding of up to 1 billion shillings for the upgrade of slum areas, revealing that the sector will receive funding once the Senate finalizes on the housing levy fund.
Equalization fund be set at 7 billion 852 million 814 723 shillings.
The big question arises how the government will fund the budget, which primarily will be anchored on taxes, with the reduced borrowing only meant for projects. Stanley Lugaria, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
President William Ruto has reiterated Kenya's commitment in actively engaging with other countries to expand and reinforce its global diplomatic networks for mutual prosperity. While receiving credentials from 5 newly posted envoys to Kenya at a State House in Nairobi, Ruto underscored the importance of collaboration with the international partners in advancing Kenya's development agenda across various sectors.
Following the presentation of credentials, President William Ruto emphasized Kenya's dedication to strengthening diplomatic ties, particularly in areas such as food security and employment opportunities. The envoys are Enrique Javier Ochoa Martinez from Mexico, Danijela Cabrillo Matic from Serbia, Morakot from Thailand, Giovanni County from San Marino, and Malaba Mamba from Eswatini.
The Republic of Kenya.
President William Ruto highlighted the role of diplomatic cooperation in promoting climate-resilient development, peace, security, and the resolution of cross-boundary conflicts. Furthermore, Ruto emphasized that fostering robust relationships with the foreign partners through diplomats will facilitate increased international trade and investment. John Matava, Lookuptv.
So we've been following a conversations right here on the Morning Drift. We're building up to tomorrow, which is International Women's Day, the 8th of March, 2024. The conversations that we've been having around women leadership, women inclusion, women identity, women propping, and equality and equity in this gender conversation. Now, if we're going to have these conversations in a wholesome platform, then you have to take stock of where we've been as a country when it comes to women leadership. And what role are men playing in those percentages we're talking about? Now, let's look at the percentages then, or the real numbers. Even as we celebrate the proper constitution of the Senate in Kenya, it's only 3 women elected senators that are seated in that house. Meaning, currently as it is and by law, only 3 women senators can vote on bills. They can front motions, they can discuss them, but they can't vote on it. Let's go back to the National House as well, where even as we're talking about an increase of women leaders in that particular house, again, we're way back on numbers. Now, you said report puts it as 109 out of 153 in terms of gender parity issues in this country. That is a very bad score. When it comes to women leadership, what is going to be the magic bullet? This morning then, we're going to be joined by Lucy Moria, who's a government expert and politician. Also, Harrison Manga, who's the country director, Media Focus on Africa. And Honorable Alice Wangari, who's a lawyer and trauma prevention practitioner, as we talk about the role of women or where we are in terms of achieving women leadership in this country. And by the way, not just here, as well as Africa in general. Guess what? Already see some of them seated in the studio this morning. We take a tiny breather. Once we come back, we do that proper introduction and talk about that particular subject, which should be as close as it can be to you as we get close to celebrating International Women's Day tomorrow, 8th of March, 2024. Good morning.
Are you an SME looking for a media partner? Look no more, as Lookuptv got you covered for all your visibility and marketing needs. We at Lookuptv understand your business needs and want to work with you on your marketing journey, giving you solutions that will take you to the next level. Call us today on 0707 572 358 or send an email to sales@lookuptv.co.ke and kickstart this amazing journey. Welcome to Lookuptv, your official SME media partner.
University of Nairobi is a distinguished institution of higher learning dedicated to nurturing your intellectual curiosity and pushing the boundaries of knowledge. From state-of-the-art laboratories to modern libraries equipped with the latest resources, we provide you with the tools you need to succeed. Choose from a wide range of programs designed to prepare you for challenges of tomorrow's world. Whether in STEM, humanities, business, or the arts, our strong industry connections and career service support will help you translate your education into meaningful career opportunities upon graduation. Join a vibrant community of scholars from around the world, fostering cultural exchange, collaboration, and lifelong friendships. Book your space now for September intakes. Log in to https://www.uonbi.ac.ke for a wide range of courses to choose from. You can also contact +254 020 491 0000 or email us at pr@ounbi.ac.ke.
Save a Life is a non-profit organization that has taken the front line in transforming lives in the entire country. So far, we have transformed life of over 100,000 people through our programs, which include medical support, youth empowerment, street family program, feeding program, and climate change. Join us today as we transform lives. As we always say, service to humanity is service to God. Save a life, transforming lives.
To start us off today is the 2017 Mazda CX-5. This car, as you all know, is a very common car in Kenya, and it came in the year 2016 because at that time people were importing vehicles from 2012 onwards, and that's the year that this car was first produced. The tailgate is automatic and it comes with 507 liters of boot space, which is a very huge space. You can put a couple of suitcases over here. And it has a dual climate control. That means that the passengers at the front will experience the AC as well as the passengers at the rear part.
At Lookuptv across all your social media platforms, the hashtag is the morning drift. Guess what? Let's then build up to tomorrow's big day, which is the International Women's Day. And yesterday, we ended our conversation on women inclusion when our guests asked you one question that on a personal level, what can you do to make sure that indeed this conversation has meaning? And they said, today, this week, if you can, start asking yourself the question, have I promoted a woman leader around me? Is my company achieving the gender parity? Are we fronting these opportunities to women around us? Good. So this morning then, let's move away from that and talk about women leadership. As you can see, our conversation is on women political participation, and I want again to introduce the guests who are with us on the set. We do have Harrison Manga, who's the country director, Media Focus on Africa. Mr. Manga, how are you doing, sir?
Very well.
Yes.
Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you very much for coming by. We do also have Lucy Moria, who's a governance expert, and a politician. Lucy, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Good morning, viewers.
Happy to have you around. Let's begin from a wholesome level, and I would like to begin with you, Lucy, for the sake of this conversation this morning. I mean, when it comes to women leadership in the country, and I'm talking about Kenya as a country, do you feel that we're making proper steps to achieving representation of women leaders in this country?
I think we are, but very slowly. The fact that we have the 2/3 gender rule,
yes,
which is actually incorporated in our constitution, but it's way too far away from the point.
Yes.
Because I just heard you talking about the number of women senators. Fortunately, one of the senators was my senator.
Was it?
Madulo,
Does it?
who has been there for the last 3 terms. I mean 3 years terms.
Yes.
She's been the senator of Isiolo, and I think, congratulations, my senator. And women governors, out of 47, we have 7. I think we are too far away. And also, when we talk about women, I think we've been so much concentrating on women who are active. We forget there is another group of women, the older women in Kenya. And these are like from 60 years and above, the ones who are retired. And they don't participate. Once you exit from the office or from political arena, you're like, no one even remembers you exist. Remember, the older women in Kenya, they live longer than men. The percentage of the older persons in Kenya today, it is 2.9%, and most of them are women. And they're still facing a lot of problems, the inheritance problem, the being elected problem. There are some cultures where even until today they cannot even imagine a woman being elected. You've seen the case of Kawera in Meru.
Yes.
She is elected, but no one believes she is still the governor. And that was even a stride for her. There are other 7 governors out of 47. It shows that we are far away from the point.
Pretty much. We'll be coming to the reasons as why we're not
We
really
are coming
making.
very slowly.
Yes, yes.
And the 2-third gender rule, the constitutionally that women have equal rights to men as far as economic, social, and political issues are concerned, and the participation.
Yes.
But now, the 2-third gender rule is enacted in the Constitution. How come then it has not been acted upon fully? Whatever it took. I remember before Maraga left, he had said even the parliament needed to be dissolved because it was unlawful. It was not illegal. Because according to legality, it should be 2-third either gender.
Yes.
So even our parliament, our senate, actually they're acting illegally, I should say.
Yes.
And so if someone is a leader or leaders and who respect the rule of law, by now we should be having women leaders. I mean, the 2-third gender rule implemented the way it's supposed to be. I've also worked in the county government. And when they talk about the 2-third gender rule, it is the women who are supposed to be on the lesser number. Like we are members of County Public Service Board, 7 members. If you see, you are like, if 2 women are there, it is okay. So it's not that they're really happy about it or the women are capable.
Yes.
It's just to fill the numbers. And I commend Lookuptv. Actually, I can even see today we are 2 women. Welcome, Madison. And you have always given actually women an opportunity to speak up.
Yes.
Yes, the media is trying. I think I've seen a lot of participation by women, especially the last 5 years.
Pretty much.
Yes.
We come to this particular conversation. I want to introduce you to this conversation like this. That Aga Khan University, just last week, they released a report that we covered right here at Lookuptv that said that if you look at even how the media covers women who are leaders, that men are more covered than women are covered in the media.
Yeah.
Is it by design? How is it that that becomes a thing in the media? That when they sampled what majority of local media were essentially talking about within that particular period, then they found that women were only covered to a level of 23% within that particular period that they did that research. So 77% went to the men, 23% went to the women.
Yeah.
Is that where the problem begins?
I think you must think of the context that we live in, the society that we live in.
Yes.
And the reality is that for the 2,000 or so years that the world has existed, men have had a far larger share when it comes to leadership, and this is leadership across the board, in the political space, you know, in the job place, in the sports, even in religious circles. So inevitably, what that means is even when media is doing coverage, when they're looking for people to speak to, when they're speaking to leaders, when they're speaking to authorities on whatever subject, chances are very high that you'll have way more men in those positions than you will have women. So as a natural consequence, therefore, even that coverage will tend to have many more men than there are women, because in reality, you have far fewer women in these positions as compared to the men. I mean, even if you think about the constitution of, you know, the journalists and the professionals in the media space who do this work, again, when you look at the numbers there, you'll find that there are more men doing this work than there are women. You'll find that there are more men making decisions within even the media houses themselves than there are women. So it's not, we don't live in a vacuum, and this is not going to happen in a vacuum. We're not going to have you know, equal coverage for men and women in our media just for the sake of it. We have to then do everything else, reorient our society, reorient how we socialize our children, and create an environment that makes it possible for boys and girls, for women and men to thrive and to rise to these positions of leadership. When we do that, when we go out there, even as media, to do coverage, to talk about issues, to look for people to speak to look for experts who can speak to the various matters that is discussed in the media, then we will eventually find that we have just as many women as there are men, and only then will the coverage you know, be balanced. So as we are trying to rectify the underrepresentation of women in political leadership through measures like what you know, Honorable Lucy is talking about here, the 2/3 gender rule and what have you, that has to be cascaded across all the other facets of society. I mean, you hear people these days talking about we need to encourage girls to study STEM, for instance, so that in certain professional spaces, we can begin to have more women in those spaces, whether you're talking about sports or whatever it is that you're talking about. So the need for inclusion, the need to, you know, bring more women into these spaces is a real need across the board. And when we do that, it will become a natural consequence that even when we start looking at the coverage, then that coverage will reflect reality. So that is why it is so important that concerted efforts are made to ensure that we have a world and we have a society where men and women thrive in all manner of ways.
In what makes news in the media stations? I mean, the media stations are going to go for what is newsy, and we do have parameters for what carries the day and what doesn't carry the day in newsrooms. But at the end of the day, when you find this imbalance, does it first point to that women, even those ones in leadership positions, are not actively talking about government policies, they're not actively coming out to challenge government policies, they're not actively picking political activism, that's one, or does it essentially speak about the general underrepresentation of women in these positions that will make them more visible to the media?
I think you can see it in a number of ways. So one, the underrepresentation is indeed a factor. So when you have far fewer women in parliament, for example, in the National Assembly, you have a house that has 349 members. You have just about under 100 of them being women. So it just means for every 3 men in that National Assembly, you have 1 woman. So therefore, you will always have more access to men to speak to from the National Assembly just because of sheer numbers. Okay? So the underrepresentation is definitely a factor that we have to think about when we are talking about the underrepresentation of women in media coverage. But also, remember that how we have been socialized has a factor in terms of how we perceive ourselves and the confidence, for instance, sometimes to step up and speak about some of these things. So we do not necessarily grow up associating authority leadership, assertiveness, with people of the female gender. So sometimes even when they're in positions of leadership, because of that context of how we've been brought up, they're not necessarily very forthright and upfront in terms of stepping up and talking about things. So there is also that as well. But there's also even the unconscious bias that we can talk about, that if I'm a journalist and I want to talk about a certain subject, the unconscious bias such that I will almost always be inclined to want a soundbite from a gentleman, to want to seek the opinions of, when I'm thinking of experts to speak to, because of the unconscious bias, I'm almost inclined to want to seek out a male voice on some of these issues. So it's that whole range of factors that one needs to appreciate when you're thinking about that.
Pretty much. Yeah. Then Lucy, let's get down into the gist of the conversation then. That we don't have legal policy and framework to address these issues. It has been there. And if you remember, even in the previous government, former CJ Maraga advised the president to send both houses home, that is the Senate and the National House home, because of not attaining the two-thirds, which is well envisioned within our constitution. But here's the thing, that the honesty of the constitution is that the way we view it is that we need to have this gender balance achieved. Good. That is in the true honesty of the constitution, and Kenyans voted yes to this particular constitution. But then there are parts within this country and even within those leadership quarters were saying maybe we didn't think deeply about the parameters of achieving this, because there's this feeling, Lucy, that we are handing these positions to women, that even their fellow women leaders, that even their fellow women might not essentially be okay with this. Did we get it wrong on the implementation part, that we need to go back and revisit? And this is the example they're giving, that we've created a position called the woman representative. We're now also saying that in the Senate currently as it is, there are nominated women leaders who never faced the electorate or faced fellow women so that they could get picked from the ground, so that people could see their true ability. Are we getting it wrong on the implementation, that the policy is there, that maybe now we look on this policy?
Yes, Simba. Before I get to there, you asked a question. You were just talking about the presentation of women in the media houses. Another thing, another problem that I've observed, I'm not saying with Lookup, even when those women are invited, it's not to discuss hard stuff. It's when you need to talk about gender. It's when you want to talk about children. You want to talk about just things, feminine things. Yes, that's what it is. So it's already the media houses demean women. Is like they have no idea. They cannot discuss politics. They cannot discuss what's going on in their country. You know, those kind of things. So what do you co-invite women to discuss when we invite women? So a lot of times when we see women is like this week, we have seen a lot of women. What do you think about women? So it is also demeaning. We want to discuss real stuff. We want to discuss leadership. We want to discuss the economic status of our country, because these women know things.
The cultural aspect, and maybe we should speak to that. That maybe the problem is not just on these women leaders, it's just the cultural aspect that we need to talk about now. That seeing women fully participating in politics and leadership issues in the country has for a very long time been attached to men issues.
I was getting there.
Yes.
So this femininity, thinking that women should be discussing feminine things, that's another thing also that, you know, puts women down there. Also on the women, also women themselves, they don't come up. How many even go for those political seats? I remember until they started the media focus where we're having Miss Presidents, a lot of women, they collected over 1,000 women from all over the country. They did a good job. I was part of Miss President. And before then, even women, they are like, oh, this is a space for men. It's when that Miss President thing showed the whole country that also women can be even Miss President, they can be president, why not? So women don't also come out in large numbers. And remember, these are the same people who make these men win. There's no election which can be done without the influence of women. If men want to win, they will come to the most influential woman in the village, in the ward. They are the ones who organize these campaigns,
yes,
and they're the ones who make them win. But when it comes, I think it's the cultural aspect. When it comes to electing other women, it becomes very difficult.
Why so? Why so?
Especially, I don't know what it is, but especially you are a single woman, you are maybe a divorced woman, it becomes such a huge thing. You don't ask a man, as you're coming to contest for this gubernatorial position, how many wives do you have? No one asks that. Are you married? No one cares about that. Are you divorced? No one cares about that. But a woman will be analyzed and demeaned until you are like, you know what? I think we should leave this. So there's that thing, I don't know, and especially on the social media. The social media also has become another thing to discourage women on, who are trying to attempt the political seats. So that's a problem as far as the media is concerned. Now let's come to implementation. I think that gender rule was too much expecting. There was too much expectation, and it was done in so much like hunger, in a hurry, just to prove something.
That it can be done.
That
we
it
can
can
change
be
it
done.
immediately.
We can done.
Yes.
But is it possible? Is it doable? Yeah, it is doable, but it's not the way they were expecting. So you say women must be there. It has to be two than either way. You know, you cannot just put a woman in a position just because she's a woman. But you give a woman the position because she is capable and she has contested for it. And now, because it was not done, it was not investigated right to check if it can work. It was just put there, it is a law, it's in the constitution, it has to be done according to, even if Maraga says we dissolve, the right candidates have to come and contest. I'm not a believer of picking just because you're a woman.
Yes.
And we've seen even those who have been picked. And that's why we have so many of them in the Senate. We have those who are nominated in the parliament, but they never talk. They are like they are not. But you can notice the ones who have been elected. So another mistake with our constitution or the policy is that saying that the women who will be nominated, or whoever will be nominated, it is people who did not go through the election, because it has to be done like several months before the election. So those real people who know the issues, have been articulating the issues on the ground.
Yes.
They know the people on the ground. They know the wananchi on the ground. They know the issues. Once you lose, like us, you are out. But just because someone campaigned for somebody, or someone is a friend of somebody, then you find the people who are even given those nominated positions,
yes,
to go and try to bring that gender rule to make it work. Those are people who are not capable. And a lot of times they are not capable. They are just there to fill the gap, which is not right. Then we think we leave real leaders. So I think what we should do, the policy needs to be looked into, and the people who are nominated should be people who have gone through the election, the people who are facing the people who are on the ground with the people who understand what politics is, not just someone to come because I'm your friend, I came, and that is exactly what happens. We have a lot of women, I think of 100, but they elected 1 million Thiambo and all these women, the lady from Thika, what's her name?
Alice Nganga.
Yes.
Alice Nganga. With someone like Wamushomba.
Yes.
You can feel them, you can hear them. It doesn't matter. Even when they are trying to put across a point, you cannot pull them down because they know what they want.
And they've been through the process.
They've been through the process.
Yes.
But some even we never had them. We see today we were looking on the list to say, who are these women who are nominated? Oh, so and so, you mean she's in parliament? We never had them. So is even women reps. We are 47. Those are not a few. It does not matter. Even if it is 1/3, 100 of them versus 300, we can hear their voice. How come we hear Millie Odhiambo? How come she passes policies and we hear her passing? How come? She is one, but we feel even when she was like the only one in parliament,
Yes.
we could still feel her. She could still do things and it could be felt. We should be seeing these women now in parliament, those who at least have had the opportunity even to be nominated. If this is what they want to do, we should be seeing them. They should be the ones who are pushing these policies and making sure that here there is a gap. We need to hear them saying there's a gap. There are women, serious women, who are left out just because of this policy.
Pretty much.
Yes.
But just, Harrison, just before you even expound on whatever she's trying to say, I mean, the aspect of presenting leaders to the people, because even for us, the media, for us to follow you, we have to follow your track record. For us to cover you, we have to know what it is that you're fighting for. I mean, challenge any media practitioner today and any political reporter today to even probably name you 10 nominated senators will be quite a struggle, especially the leaders. Will be quite a struggle. So here we are complaining that, well, they're not getting the coverage that they need, or they're not visible to the media, but visibility starts from the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, the campaign process is quite a long, vigorous process. Yes, we have the affirmative action that says, well, it's got to be like that, and you can't run away from it. That's law. But then this picking of these leaders and putting them in these positions, even the electorate do not know them. So they go through a 5-year cycle, not visible to us, not visible to the electorate, and then after 5 years, we still say, wow, some of them tried to go back to the campaigns they failed. Now, again, we got to nominate more again to this particular position.
Can you imagine?
Yes.
And the reason,
Yes.
let me just say this point before I forget. Why are they not visible? Because they stand for nothing. There's nothing you stand for.
So do we get it wrong
Yes.
on this picking them for these particular positions?
I think, and just, I insist on this because I think it's a very important foundation to lay for every other point and argument that is being made. We will not, you cannot see these women out of their context. And I think context is very important.
Yes.
And context here, I'm talking about our cultural context. For instance, for the longest time, we have had to make deliberate efforts, initiatives, campaigns to ensure that girls can go to school at the same level as boys. Because if girls don't go to school at the same level as boys, the reality is 10, 15 years down the line, you'll have much more qualified, much more competent boys or men at that point than you will have girls or women at that point. We must also appreciate that the way we are brought up, the voices that speak to us as we're growing up, the voices that tell us, this is your place, you can speak, you can stand up, you can be heard, and they're the same voices that will tell the girl, the woman, leadership is not your space. You're not supposed to speak in the presence of men, for instance. I mean, there are communities where that is even a reality today in 2024.
Yes.
So context is very important. So even as we speak about the nominated, the women who are in the National Assembly, or the women who are in the Senate, or wherever else, and you know, quote unquote, their lack of visibility, their lack of speaking out, you cannot divorce them from the reality and the context that they've come from. And that's why the 2/3 gender rule is an aspirational principle in our constitution.
Yes.
Because we haven't got there. We are way down the ladder in terms of that.
Yes.
But that rule is aspirational. It's supposed to inspire us as a country to take steps, deliberate steps. And I think when the Attorney General asked the Supreme Court in 2012 for an advisory opinion about how that particular principle in our constitution is to be realized, the opinion from the Supreme Court was that this cannot be achieved immediately. It is something that is achieved progressively. So it's an aspirational principle that we would like to get to the point where how we constitute our elective bodies is such that we do not have any specific gender that has more than 2/3 of the membership of that body. And aspirational principles are things that have been embraced globally. If you think about the Sustainable Development Goals, those are aspirational goals for the world.
Yes.
Things like we will eliminate extreme poverty, things like access, elimination of hunger and what have you. It doesn't mean that today in the world people are not hungry. It doesn't mean that today there's no poverty in the world. But at that level of the SDG, it's an aspiration for the world. Can we strive to eliminate extreme poverty? Can we strive to eliminate hunger? So the 2/3 gender principle is an aspirational principle for us. It is supposed to be our marker. So every time, every 5 years, every 2 years, every 10 years, we should be looking at it and asking ourselves, how much progress are we making towards achieving that aspirational principle?
Pretty much.
Yes.
So just on that particular point as well. I mean, when we look at exactly what happens to the 2/3, we have to track where it is easy to apply. I mean, the legal making houses in this country. Let's go back to the National House.
Yes.
We may not talk about the Senate because the Senate is actually making advances on that. We can see all the nominated women senators in that particular house. But then let's go back to the National House. Harrison, you would like to think that would be quite easy for these lawmakers in the National House to say, hold on, there's something in the law that we're not meeting. We are here illegally. This house is not legally constituted.
Yes.
Guys, before we move any motion, and that could be something maybe moved even by the chair of the National House business, the Speaker of the National Assembly, will come in and say, hey guys, before we move any business, can we make this quorum here legal as per law? Where does that become a challenge? Knowing very well that these are the guys who are even supposed to abide by every legal article of the Constitution.
Two ways again. One, does the overall political leadership of the country subscribe to the idea that we need to have the required numbers of women in terms of the National Assembly, so that from a gender composition perspective it meets the constitutional threshold? Because what we know from experience is that if the national leadership of this country, the political party leadership at the very highest level, if they want, because there's a law that needs to be passed to bring this aspirational principle of 2/3 to reality in the National Assembly. By the way, it's important to point out that at the county assembly level, the Constitution already provided a framework for ensuring that is adhered to. And so in our county assemblies, we've already, at a minimum, we've already met that principle. At the Senate, we're also almost getting to it. And the Senate, it's possible only because the number of senators is smaller. When the whole House is constituted, we have about 67 members, and we have about 21 women in the Senate. So we're almost getting there at the Senate. So where the biggest issue is in terms of the bare minimum of meeting that threshold is at the National Assembly, where we need at least almost another 70 women to get to the threshold that is required. But my point is, if the national political leadership has the will, the desire and the interest to ensure that our National Assembly meets that threshold, that bill would be passed. They would just need to snap their finger and that would be passed. Because we have seen when bills need 2/3 majority in the National Assembly, they get it. So what that tells you is that even at the national, at the political leadership level, the real will to make this happen is not there. And I will hark to my point that all of this is a direct consequence of our society. Our society is yet to fully embrace the idea that men and women can thrive and play at the same level when it comes to political leadership. And that is not just a problem that you find with the men. That's also a problem that you find with the women as well. Because we are all products of this society. The voices that speak to the men when it comes to gender and leadership are the same voices that speak to the women.
Yes.
So it's not, and I hear this statement made a lot, that women are their own enemies when it comes to, for example, the pursuit for political leadership. But do not divorce those women from the environment that they've grown up in. The environment that they've grown up in tells them that leadership is almost a male domain. So that's why reorienting our thinking. And that's why people will always talk about things like creating awareness, things like civic education. That's why programs like the one that Media Focus on Africa does, Miss President, are important, because what all of those do is remind us all that leadership really at the end of the day is gender neutral. And therefore a man or a woman, as long as they have the capacity and there are more than enough capable and qualified women in this society, should be able to rise to positions of leadership. But we need to handle and address the challenges and the obstacles that have led to the reality where that is not happening.
Pretty much. Now, Lucy, this is the next question that I have around this particular area. I mean, let me just remind you what the president has done. That's President Dr. William RUTO. I mean, in his campaign promise, he said, well, I do promise that in my cabinet, I'm going to have a 50-50 representation, which is also questionable. I mean, it's changed. It's not a promise that we've seen. But then on this issue of 2/3 gender rule, they did promise Kenyans that once I go into power, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure that we achieve that. You know what he did? He came up with a working group that essentially gave proposals on how this can be met in Parliament, on what we can start to do, and also in different sectors within the government. You see, the Constitution again is getting interpreted on that particular aspect. It's quite clear. Get 2/3. It's quite simple. Go discuss it. And there have been proposals over and over again that we've spoken about as the National House, but when it comes to the voting end, they lack a quorum. Well, you find a majority of men, even most notably, just like Harrison is saying, even the women who you like to think will be there 100%, they walk out. They're like, well, there's no quorum on this. But the president is approaching it differently. Come up with a working group, come up with proposals, take them to Parliament, let them talk about them, where maybe this time around we can see quorum when it comes to voting on this particular bill. How different is this, what the president is doing now, from what we've seen previously?
First of all, before we continue, Arson talked about the education, women being given opportunity. I think that one is has outgrown. If you go to primary schools right now, even at the universities, the highest registration is women. Primary schools now, girls are more than boys. So that idea of who to go to school, I don't think that is a problem anymore in Kenya. The going to school is there. If you go to universities, I've been into classes where we had fewer men than women there.
That's what the problem.
So that's not the problem now.
Lucy, here's where the problem comes. And by the way, it's a good thing that we're talking about this week. It became a problem yesterday, where that question was asked, that you're putting more women in class that are seated with these men. When it comes to the university qualification, you tell women you can qualify with a lower grade than this man. When it comes to appointing a leader in a company, a man goes there who's qualified as this woman, but then he's told, no, you can't get it because this woman is there. But remember, they've gone through the same process up to where they are at this level. Is that not where the problem begins?
So the question of, interfered with my
and I do apologize for that.
Yes, okay.
The question of education.
The question of education is no more a problem. Women know how to go to school. Parents know how to take their girls to school. There's nothing like advocating anymore for that. That one is happening. If it can happen in Isiolo and we elect a senator woman, if it can happen in Marsabit, then what about the real Kenya now? So that one is not. And remember, you said something about, at least we should hear those few women who are there. They should be the ones who are pushing those motions. How many times have we had this current government, because Maraga, before he left, he talked about that law, that parliament, this Senate should be dissolved. How many came in and we hear them bringing this motion in parliament, and then we say, oh, people walked. People walked sometimes back, but not now. Where are these women who are there? Why are we not seeing them, making them so uncomfortable? Why are we not seeing them hitting their houses like, no, this is what we want, this is what we want. We never hear them saying that. They don't have to be so many for them to make a difference. Even if they don't make it, they lack the quorum, let us hear them talking about it over and over until whoever is in power. And it's not even the question of his power. The most supreme power is the Constitution. It is stipulated clearly. Two than gender rule, either gender. So to think like we are not seeking for favors, like the current government, the president or someone should be saying this. We don't. The law already is saying. The only thing that they can do, if it is not working, because if you do something, it doesn't work, you review and see, hey, why is it not working? Yeah, did we do it abruptly? What happened? Is it not achievable? Then how do we do it? Okay, like the Supreme Court said, then maybe it should be done gradually. Then why don't we have that law being adjusted to that? Why don't we see people seeking for amendment for that? And then we will stop complaining. Otherwise, other than that, this is not anything that needs favors. And when we talk about the two that gender do, either way, it's not just in politics. Because we have so much on elected position.
Yes.
There are women who are so qualified out there. They even tried politics. There are women who can be PSs, who can be CSs, who can be ambassadors, who can be this. Why are we not seeing them there? Why are we not seeing that balance there? The president, before he got in, he said, you know, my government is not just to that. I am going to have my cabinet from his mouth. 50-50. How many women are cabinet out of the number of cabinet members? How many cabinet women do we have?
I think about 7.
About 7. Out of what?
Out of 21.
So,
yes.
Why that? And who said it is only women who should be on the lower numbers? Even maybe men could have been 7, and then we see women cabinet members, because there are women who are qualified, very, very qualified. Always, you go even where they are giving the one that number to women. Why is it that it's the women who are on the one that side? Why? Are you telling me that we don't have qualified women? Who are we? All of us, we are qualified. Oh, this is a lawyer who trying to be a senator. Here, where is she out there? People who can give, who can contribute to this country. Again, corruption. Even whatever we are not achieving is because of corruption. If the right things were done, if the corruption wasn't there, they are picking the right women who can be CSs, who can be PSs, who can be nominated the right way, then I think Kenya would be moving, because we could be having these women as role models to others. You can say, even if you hear, oh, Lucy became the CS, you say, that's true, I believe Lucy can perform. Because you have seen her doing it. Yes.
That's it. Just before we introduce Honorable Ales Mungari to the conversation.
I think I wanted to challenge what Lucy said.
On the point of education.
On the point of education, because I think for me that's a fundamental point.
Yes.
And it seems we're at variance on that point. Because I don't know what statistic Lucy is relying on to say, for instance, that at the university enrollment levels, when you compare male students and female students.
I say the primary schools.
No, you even mentioned university. But even if you speak about primary school, this is the country where there are lots of well-documented studies and reports that girls miss school, almost a third of school in a year, because they don't have sanitary towels. They literally are out of class every time.
But is it because of lack of creating awareness? Are they aware that they should be to school?
Can I just argue my point? Yes. I am trying to show that you can think about enrollment on the face of it as being equal. But I'm digging deeper. and telling you that just because the numbers say enrollment percentages are equal or whatever,
yes,
there are so many other factors that come into play that ultimately disadvantages the girl when you compare with the boy. And for me, the best example of this is the whole question of menses and the lack of access to menstrual products, things like pads.
Yes.
And girls literally miss school because they do not have pads. Girls get pregnant and drop out of school because they're engaged in transactional sex in order to be able to access pads. So I think even at the level of education, the numbers on the face of it may tell you that story, but even those numbers I would like to dispute. I'm not even sure that those numbers are equal. And even if they're equal at the primary school level, I am certainly sure they're not equal as you go higher. So even though people are, numbers are present, but when you think of how many of them spend time in class, you will find a totally different picture.
Pretty much.
My point was, let me clear this. My point was on women who are nominated to Parliament and Senate and the ones who are elected and into Senate. And we are talking about participation. Why don't they show up in media houses? Why don't they? Why are they not visible?
Yes.
And then you're trying to argue it's because of the backing ground. If you have made it to Parliament, you made it to Senate. I don't think there's any other, baggage of thinking that, because I came, I didn't go through, I had my menses, I had struggles. You struggled, you're already there. We need to hear your voice.
Guess what? We're going to come back to that. Honorable Adlef, good morning. How are you doing? I'm just going to throw you in the deep end this morning. You see where we are? We are at that point where we're talking about, the legal framework is there. Even these companies, by the way, have a legal framework that they have to meet for them to be in line with the labor laws in this country that say, well, it's got to be 50-50 in your company. But then, here's a question that we're digging into. You see where the interesting point is, Harrison. Somebody yesterday on this panel took us back to when we were amending the Marriage Act that was saying, in the event of a divorce, what do you take out? Where somebody proposed that, well, the courts have to prove in quantity what both of them brought in. Or if the man brought in 20% and the courts can prove it, then you're given 20% as you walk out of that marriage. If the woman brought in 50%, both moral and immaterial, they walk out with 50%. It was removing us from the 50-50 upon divorce. They reminded us this, that particular bill was passed within a record 5 minutes from mention to passing. They voted on it. There was no dissenting view. Women dissented, but the majority, as we do know, are men in that, and it went with a flash. Now, this is the controversy in this. That we're talking about women leadership and achieving the 2/3, but guess who we are taking this back to? It is the men. We're going to talk about this and say, yes, we do accept to have a 2/3 gender majority in this particular parliament. That in one way or another, like we've seen in previous attempts, all the way from Mwai Kibaki's government up to Uhuru Kenyatta's government, they have found way to thwart it upon arrival in parliament.
Right.
Is that what we're getting it wrong? That we still have to take it back to the men?
Okay. Thank you so much, Elijah. Good morning.
Good morning,
my fellow panelists, Harrison and Lucy. Good morning, viewers. I would like to say, starting from a very controversial perspective, that the fact that we are missing out on the 2/3 gender legislation could be a blessing in disguise. That is quite a controversial remark from me, and I have already studied the merits and the demerits that come with such a statement. One, I would say that because we are so far away from understanding what gender justice or gender parity is all about, or what it entails. Reason being, even the few women who have been nominated or appointed or elected are performing below capacity, meaning that our society, which is the nominating institution for such women, is also yet to understand the roles of such women, the roles of such men who are elected to institutions of accountability. Therefore, for me, I believe that the possible solution to all this is to start at the core, at the base. So we need to start reimagining our education system to find a way that we can start re-engineering our children, the young learners, so that they can understand the roles of women and men in society are not antagonistic but collaborative. And that is why we find that much as we are agitating and pushing for two-third consideration, it does not work. It ends up in a flop, and it always ends up in a tug of war, because now it pits women against men, men against women. We are yet to understand that we work in complementarity to each other. So for me, I would actually say that this year's theme for Women's Day should actually be, you know, collaborative gender inclusion. Because right now, if you ask me, our problems are not gender inquirate parliaments, gender inquirate executive, gender inquirate private sector. No, those are not our challenges. Our challenges are the basic things. For example, the fact that there is labor injustice in this country. Women are still being paid below the minimum wage in any company. Women are still being manipulated and abused sexually for any promotion. Have we ever had any legislation in parliament whereby anybody has proposed that women who go on maternity leave, for example, are put on a fast tracking, for example, program whereby they can catch up for the time lost during maternity leave, so that when it comes to considerations for promotion, they are at par with men? You find that when a woman now gets into the natal phase, so her career starts stagnating, you see, and more men are promoted. There is also the issue of sexual exchanges for women to be promoted, and you know, it continues to become a game of blackmail, such that if a woman wants to continue rising through the ranks of employment, they have to continue, you know, giving up their bodily integrity. There is a question of gun violence, especially in the ASOL areas, the banditry-stricken places of northern Kenya, and also the insecure places of coastal area of Lamu and Mpeketoni. Who is talking about the horrors that those women go through, that are captured by those bandits and those terrorists? Those women are forced into marriage. For example, in Tana River County, those women are abducted, they are forced into marriages, they are raped, they are sexually assaulted. For them to access water, which is a basic commodity, it is a natural resource. You see, there is a question of FGM, which is yet to be totally eradicated in this country. And now there is actually what we call cross-border FGM, where women in those practicing communities are actually transported into a neighboring country, for example, Ethiopia, and they are taken there, the FGM is conducted, and once the young women are healed, they are repatriated to the country. Now, in some communities, for example, the Kuria community, where they conduct the FGM at infantry, therefore, that those communities that practice such actually inflict childhood traumas that are long-term in the life of a woman. There is a lot. There is also the question of access to food. The areas, the ASOL areas where we have rising cases of single mothers because their husbands have been killed by the bandits while they are trying to protect the livestock, which is their only source of livelihood. So those women are actually at the mercy of the bandits, you see. So they keep borrowing food. And you know what happens with hiyo chakula ya msaada is that at some point there is also an aspect of blackmail. If you want to access it, you have to give up your bodily integrity for you to access that food, for you to access, you know, vital services. There is the issue of what we have just come from experiencing, femicide, which of course is a crime that, you know, is a hate crime against women. It's the most extreme case of hate crime against women, which of course is perpetrated by acts of narcissism, misogyny, and sadism. Yeah, and all those things are perpetrated by long-standing issues of trauma within women and men in the society. So we have to go back to the roots of what is this that is causing the pitting of men against women and women against men before we reach towards, legislative interventions.
Pretty much.
Could I just
Yes,
make a
yes.
little point?
Yes, yes,
pigging back on what my panelist colleague has just said. And for me, this is the reason why the case for having more women in leadership, but especially in representative leadership, is very important. There's something called lived experience. If I haven't worn your shoe, I will probably never know what it's like to be in your position. Some of the most consequential legislations, even in this country, are born out of lived experience of some of the legislators. In 2006, a celebrated law that is still in our books until today was enacted. The law is called the Sexual Offences and Crimes Act, I believe. Who championed that law? The current Supreme Court Justice Njoki Ndung'u. By 2006, Kenya had been independent for nearly almost 40 years, if I'm not wrong. There was about 43 thereabouts.
Yes.
We had almost 9 parliaments by the time that parliament was in place. There had never been any law of that nature until that time. Why am I using this example? Women tend to be the biggest victims of sexual violence in our society. It took the deliberate thinking, mobilizing, planning, organizing by a female legislator in the National Assembly. For that, it doesn't matter that it was one, but it took the thinking, the mobilization, the organization of a female legislator to get that law into office. Why? Because that's a reality that is lived and experienced by the ladies. Today, there's a bill that is pending in Parliament called Assistive Reproductive Technology Bill. Guess who is the champion of that bill?
A lady.
Honorable Millie Mabona. Why again? Because we live in a society where it is the women that bear the brunt when issues of struggles with conception happen. The natural default is that people will assume it is the woman who is not able to conceive, even if that is not always the case. Again, why is that example important? Because this is a reality that the women live. And therefore, there is no surprise that it is a woman who is championing such a law in Parliament. And I'm using those examples to also say that the women in Parliament who are in those positions are actually doing something, and they're doing some very consequential things, like the Sexual Offences Act, like this assistive reproductive bill. If it becomes law, you can imagine how many people are going to be so positively impacted, because today, if you are unable to conceive the normal way, there is no law or policy that guides what you can be able to do. And the science and the technology is already there, but we don't have the law or the policy that guides that framework. So things like surrogacy and the others are things that you cannot do here in Kenya. And even if you do, and there are disputes between you and the parties involved, you will have no proper recourse. So the women in the National Assembly are actually making their impact. And it's the reason why we need to have more of them. Because then they will always bring the unique perspective of a woman, the lived experience of a woman. And that lived experience of a woman, that unique experience of a woman will inform some of the legislations and the policies that we're getting in place. If we are talking about things like maternity leave, and I know that there are companies where if a woman becomes pregnant, you're almost declared redundant. You will not always hear the men be the ones to talk about such challenges. Why? Because that's not their lived reality. That's a lived reality of a woman. It's a woman who is passed up promotions at work because they've spent 9 months away, or 3 months away, or 6 months away, or whatever period of time it is. Men do not spend time away for the same reasons. So The reason why we need to have women and continue to make the case for more women and really to have more women in those spaces is they will always bring their unique circumstances, their unique lived realities to speak to the laws, to speak to the policies that we're enacting.
Pretty much. I want to take 2 minutes because after that I will still come back to, with you from this particular break, because I want to introduce another conversation that indeed even the women themselves who are in these decision-making platforms might not be in support of the modalities that we're using to pick these women. Somebody asked me to ask you this question this morning.
Yeah.
Nakuru County, which has been called Nakuru Girls, apparently. Or Machakos. Yeah. That, what is so special about Nakuru County in respect to women leadership?
Actually, the women were elected. That is the only thing which is special because it's different, it's unique and Machakos. But how much are we hearing their voice as far as standing for other women is concerned? Congratulations, Mabona and Jokinjungu.
Yes,
there's also another lady who brought a motion, this lady, Zuleka. This one, the one who brought the baby to parliament, and that's how we came up with the law of every institution must have a place for changing children, and I hope you have it. And where ladies go present their children. So this is all, it's true, I agree with you, it's women who are pushing. And that's why we are saying 100 women in parliament, if those 2-3 of them could, if every woman there, all these issues we are talking about, one could stand with one problem affecting women, and we hear you coming up with a policy or pushing it or making noise, even as a civil society who are out there, we can really be very happy. So they must be proactive. And we said the reason why all the women he has mentioned, or the ones we have mentioned, they were not nominated, they are elected, and they went there with an agenda. Millie has an agenda. That's why she is elected by her people. So those women with an agenda who are not elected, they're out there getting wasted. So we get to pick these other ones who have no agenda. So we need women there with agenda. We have a lot of problems. And again, I'll go back, you're concentrating only with these women, the young women. The older women, they have the problem of inheritance, land issues. The minute you're single, your husband dies, or you're a widow, or you are divorced, and you are by yourself, your land, like in Kisii, that's a standard case, and Nyamira, I've been there severally.
That's my county.
That's your county.
County.
You've seen the witches. Why there are no men who are witches when they are older? It's women. Just because you're in your land and someone wants to grab it, they make sure they eliminate you. Why don't we? Is this not a problem? And it is almost like every man is someone last week one was killed in Marsabit. Now they have even gone to Marsabit, Kisii, Kilifi, Nyamira, they're always killed. The minute you start developing some wrinkles, wewe ni mchawi. And if you follow up, these are single women, widows who have maybe don't have children or they live by themselves. Last week, one in Machakos, a case now, right now, someone, a lady who lives there by herself, she had been in her farm since 1970. Someone just comes. She had planted a lot of trees and mangoes of this. It was like a forest of a retirement package. Someone just comes because you are a man and you cut that down. Is that not something we should hear someone in parliament talking about? We've had femicide. Women, even last week, every week. This is a huge thing. It's a woman thing. We didn't hear men being killed. Of course, they get killed. But the femicide thing has become too much. Is that not something to catch the attention of our women representatives and the elected women leaders? We hear them saying, we hear at least one talking about it in parliament. Is it not an issue? We are still waiting for the president to come and give us the favor of saying, pass this motion. Let us see them trying to pass the motion, then it fails, then we have someone else to blame.
Pretty much. Come back, Harrison is right here with us. We'll be talking about what is learned essentially from even some of the initiatives they have on Media Focus on Africa. Essentially the one that is his president. What is that? And if it can account for us, is it changing the perspectives of men in this conversation? And still that big question that for the elected women leaders in this country, how is it that they've risen up? The likes of Mwangaza, who have risen up in counties that have predominantly been run by men. What is special about it? And can they be used then to prop up more women into these positions? Hence, the G7. We're going to talk about it once we come back right here on The Morning Drift.
Tuko hapa Kaptara, tunataka kusema asante sana RUTO Foundation kwa mambo mazuri ambayo wameweza kutufanyia leo. Wakaaji wa hapa Kaptara, wakaaji wa hapa Salawa, wakaaji wa hapa Mujukuo, mpaka wakaaji wote ambao wanatoka hapa Baringo County.
Naambia RUTO Foundation asante kwa kazi nzuri wanayofanya. Mungu awabariki.
Every time you play Lotto, 25% goes to the RUTO Foundation, which supports our fellow Kenyans through various causes. Thank you for your help. Together, we are changing lives.
Tere, mambo ni mawili, kufikisha, kumwaga na kurudi. Kulala ni mwaka mpya.
Muka we mse. Nini mbaya? Wewe kwani wani vile dereva anaendesha gari vibaya, lazima tususe. Anaendesha gari na kwa simu the whole time, hata angalia barabara. Mamiseni dereva tusimame. Wewe dereva wewe. Mwaka iliyopita peke yake watu zaidi ya 3,000 walipoteza maisha yao barabarani kwa sababu ya tabia kama hizo. Hautatuangamiza tukiona.
Naomba msamaha, nitamtamka vizuri.
Si wameomba msamaha. Sasa tuende tusafiri kwa mwendo wa aste.
Dere Smart hufikisha abiria salama. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na NTSA kwa ushirikiano na European Union.
Are you an SME looking for a media partner? Look no more, as Lookuptv got you covered for all your visibility and marketing needs. We at Lookuptv understand your business needs and want to work with you on your marketing journey, giving you solutions that will take you to the next level. Call us today on 0707 572 358 or send an email to sales@lookuptv.co.ke and kickstart this amazing journey. Welcome to Lookuptv, your official SME media partner.
Were saying that indeed there are elected women leaders as it is. And if you look at even the country, we're celebrating a minimum feat that for the very first time since the promulgation of the new constitution, the current constitution, I was told never to call it new again, it's 14 years old, that's not new. We do have 7 women governors, a big feat that 7 women governors have gone to the electorate, they have sought your votes, and you thought that 7 of them are good. Previously, we only had 3, if you do remember. So an additional 4 in the 2022 general elections. there are other people who are saying that indeed this number, currently with the way it is bound to continue increasing, because if you have examples of governors like Kawira Mwangaza who've risen up on an independent candidate, pitted against the strongest male politicians in a county, and then she comes top, then it's an example that indeed the question of integrity and leadership, once you present yourself, then your electorate is going to pick you. Now, I want us to shift gears a little bit. There's someone who said this, that this 2/3, just go to the political parties, that change it at all. And then go to the registrar of political parties and don't change it on composition, because composition is already there. Even currently as it is, by the way, you need to meet the 2/3. Something that is observed in political parties. But then political parties say this, it's very easy to turn that around. That you can say, yes, we have 2/3, and in all these elective positions, we've posted equal men and women. But then somebody asked this question, Harrison, that if ODM, for example, gets a woman member of parliament here, okay, and Jubilee, for example, gets a woman member of parliament in Kisumu, all right, that it's a different story. That at the end of the day, what these political parties are doing, they've mapped up these regions. They know the areas where they're strong at. And so what they're doing is that they're posting their top male candidates to these areas they know they enjoy majority support. And in the areas where they do know very well that chances of us winning in that area are very minimal, they're posting these women to these regions. In as much as it is, by law, they've met it. And you can push them. You can push them. It will tell you, out of our 50 elective positions, we have maybe 25 women that we posted to them. And they will show you on paper. But in reality, they will still get men emerging victorious from these particular positions. So they said, you go to the political parties, that's a dead end. Is it true?
Yeah, I think, and we can all agree that one of the biggest impediments on the path of getting more women in elective political leadership has to do with the political party.
Yes.
And I alluded to it earlier that is there a will? Is there a real will? No. A real interest or desire at the very highest level of this political leadership to make sure that we have more women? And I think history tells us that the answer is no. And as you're properly illustrating, you know, there are regions that enjoy overwhelming support for certain political parties. And it therefore means that in some of those places, if women got the political party ticket for whatever position, they have as good a chance as anyone of getting elected. So the straight answer to you is that the political will, the real political will and desire from the very top leadership of our country, from the very top leadership of all the major political parties is lacking. And so that's why we are struggling with making this a reality. Yeah.
So,
yes,
in these political parties,
yes,
look at the political leadership. Look at every party that you know is a major party. You tell me maybe the party leader is this woman, or deputy party leader is this woman, or the secretary general of this party is a woman. It starts from there, because if you want the women now to start making like serious decisions of other women, then they should also in that table. So, because like nominations, they are done by the political leadership, by the secretariat, and they know. So it starts with the political parties. How do we hold these political parties accountable? If the only way to hold them accountable is to make sure that that gender rule has been fulfilled, then we end up with no quality.
Yes.
We can have women, but what kind of women? It's just like participation. When you go to counties, you find that there's a bill they want to pass, there's something they want. Oh, we didn't participation. But they handpick the women who are going to sit there. The women who cannot question, the women who may not even understand what's going on. So how do we, the question is, how do we hold the people accountable from the political parties, that which women have you nominated? That's where I was talking about the amendment of the law that says the women who have gone through the election, and of course those are the actual leaders who have faced
the electorate. Yes.
Those ones, how can they should be the ones who are getting elected. They have shown signs, they have shown interest, they have been there. So they have shown interest. They want, and they have been maybe proven. You know, maybe you missed by 2 points, maybe 100 votes. Does that make you a lesser member of parliament? You are a member of parliament by your own rights. So we start with, if there's a way we can amend that, we have political parties that are appointing or nominating quality women.
Does it?
And by quality, I'm not saying they are not beautiful. I'm talking about those ones who can contribute. How come? If whoever nominated someone like Gloria from Kisii, I'm very happy. Because Gloria, she stands for something. Immediately she got in, actually she even came late, I think. But she came late after the senator for Narok became CS.
Yes.
But she came and she stood, and now everyone in Kenya knows what she stands for. She's the one who brought the idea of menses, why girls are missing school, why they should not be victimized because they have their menses on their dresses. And by the way, they are stuck into people's heads. She has billboards all over the country. Not only here in Nairobi, the whole country. Gloria is known. And we know there's a woman. Unless now the Kisii people, if Gloria came to seek for an elected position, and maybe because she's a woman, she may not get. But that's a quality. Gloria, Millie Thiambo, and also like...
And Crystal Asige.
Crystal Asige. Yeah, those kind of women.
Gathoni wa Mshomba.
Gathoni wa Mshomba.
Yes.
Look at the governors. Look at what Wanga is doing. What she's doing internationally, globally, she's known. And not just known for funny things. You know, Gladys Wanga, the kind of women, the quality women we are talking about.
Yes.
If you're not talking about the Karen Nyamo kind of thing, anytime we hear about you is when you are shaming women. We want women who have an agenda, who know where they are there, who know that we are trying to achieve the two-third gender rule, who knows I am here because I must make sure the issues of women are addressed through me, because we are few. Like you were saying, we are the best people to articulate issues of women because we have lived it, we have seen it.
Yes.
They have affected us. Some of us are even victims of most of those things. Yeah, so we can do it better.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Unless, is it possible that we can get a solution from the political parties? Well, we can tell the political parties if the elective positions do not represent the two-thirds, then
I believe it's possible to get the solutions from political parties. All that happens to, all that requires to be there is a political goodwill, especially from the leadership, the top leadership of the political parties. Having contested in the previous general elections, and of course I was defeated, yes. It was expected. But there was something very interesting. Of course, just as my colleague here, Harrison, has said, I'm also a victim of lived experiences. So I was contesting for Kiambu Senate, and of course our political party was affiliated to Kenya Kwanza. So meaning UDA also had fielded a male candidate. Can you imagine that my party at the last minute abandoned me when they realized that I was far from it, and somehow, by implication, actually started campaigning for the male senator? So I was left to my own devices, and even after that, I think for them, they just felt that, my contract with them was just at elections, and then after that, despite knowing my capacity, they could not, even fix me anywhere. So I'm just out here, trying to carve my own niche and carve out my own brand. So political parties actually need to, brand themselves in a way that even after electoral loss for women, they need to work with these women, encourage them, place them somewhere. You know, you can actually, a woman who is promising with a good manifesto, you can actually prop her even to the party NEC as an NEC member. You can have some kind of arrangement with the county that she be placed somewhere. So it doesn't end there. And you know, one thing we need to look out for is the fact that this competitive politics actually ends at elections. After that, we have to look for people with qualities of leadership, no matter their political affiliations. We have seen President Ruto now is in good speaking terms with Raila Odinga. So why can't the same be replicated in the counties? These governors are going to hire people who we do not even understand where they come from. Their qualifications are questionable. Yet the people who contested are still at home sleeping. They are still looking for platforms. Why can't they reach out to those people? So if it is a question about inclusivity, it should be replicated not only at the national level but also at the county level. Yes, it is supposed to be cascaded down, top down.
Pretty much.
Yes.
Now, Harrison, but just want to touch on something that is going to tell us exactly where we are, these initiatives. And I'll be coming to you as well, because the 7 governors have launched something called the G7. And I don't know whether they've read so much into maybe how the 2/3 conversation in the National House is ongoing. Maybe they say, let's shut our own calls. Harrison, for any other person who's not been exposed to Miss President, yes, what is this initiative, and what are you looking to achieve with it as a media focus on Africa?
So Miss President is, again, to borrow a term used earlier, it's an aspirational kind of programming.
Yes.
We've not yet had Miss President in Kenya, and by a Miss President I mean we have not yet had a female as the head of state and commander-in-chief of this republic. So Miss President, an aspirational thing is, we're trying through use of a program on television, we're trying to plant some seeds, some mental image in the mind of Kenyans that you can actually have the commander-in-chief of this republic as a female. And how we do that is we get some of the best women in terms of qualifications, education, experience, the kind of work that they've done, the kind of initiatives that they're doing, in the communities where they come from. And so these women come to compete on a national platform of a national TV to show us what it is that they can do if they had the office and the power of the president. So they're challenged on what typically a president would be challenged with on a daily basis.
Yes.
Things like security, things like food security, things like the areas of health. So typically we try to mirror what the functions of the office of the President of Kenya would be. And those are the challenges that these wonderful ladies are subjected to. And then we see them on TV, handling these challenges, so that we begin to show people that actually amongst us, the women amongst us can rise to the occasion, can step up to the plate, and can provide us the leadership that we need. My colleagues over here possibly could be very well able to provide us some of the guidance and the leadership that we need for some of the challenges we're facing.
Yes.
And all we really need to do is to conceptualize what it is possible, and then give them the opportunity. So Ms. President is to help us conceptualize the idea of a woman as the President of Kenya, because that's a reality that we have not yet experienced. And by the way, may I say that my panelist colleague, Lucy, was in the first edition of the show that we did. And as you have seen her, explain herself here and talk about things, you can see that the quality is there. I'm sure if we had another edition, my other panelist colleague could also step up. But so the idea is really to show Kenyans and plant it in our minds and show us that the women exist. The capacity in them is there, the ability is there, and they are as capable as anyone else. And may I even add that out of that group of women that have come through the Miss President program, today we have 2 sitting members of the National Assembly. I don't know that people are aware of that. We have Honorable Yeah, we have Honorable Irene Mayaka in the National Assembly.
She was a-
yes.
she was a president.
Honorable Umulher Harun Mohammed, who's also in the National
Is
Assembly.
that a testament that when you
It is.
expose
Yes.
this,
It is.
And
It is.
nominated MCA from
Yes,
Homa Bay
absolutely
area.
not
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
And even today, there's a nominated MCA in Kisii who has been in Miss President.
Yes.
There's a nominated MCA in Busia, and there's also another one in Marsabit. So
And an NEC member of Jubilee, Angel Mbuthia.
absolutely, the youth president of the Jeremiah Kioni, led faction of the Jubilee Party, at the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee, the technical people that support the governors and the president in managing the summit.
Yes.
We have someone from Miss President who is there. What am I saying ultimately? That Miss President simply serves. And the proof is there.
Yes.
That we have as many capable, qualified, ready women willing to serve and can provide us the leadership that is needed. All that is required. Can we just have an environment that allows them to thrive just as much as we allow the men?
Pretty much. Alice, I just want to, because I'll be coming back to you, I just want you to take 15 seconds to answer this question. It was a question that was put across to us yesterday. We didn't get time to answer it with the panel that we had on the set yesterday. Every other national census that we do indicates that in this country, there's slightly more women than men in this country. So essentially, if we keep on breaking those statistics, you'll find that in the voting brackets again, you'll find that there are more women above 18 years old in this country than would be men. Then somebody said, but we haven't had a women president. That we're talking about this and we haven't seen it. When the numbers are saying, well, if you decided today, as women in this country, you would have a woman president. We've had women run before. Even in the previous election, we had a woman was running as a vice president. But we didn't see them, we haven't seen them rise to these particular positions. Why is it?
Okay. So to simply answer that question, women are majority by number, but minority in empowerment. Women are disempowered simply by virtue of the fact that we still remain enshackled in retrogressive cultural practices. Our history also has something to do with it. Can I surprise you that in an elitist county as Kiambu would be seen to be, most of the women there are dependent on their husband's political decisions. It is the man, the head of the house, who actually dictates who will be voted in that household. So you can imagine that could be replicated.
If Kiambu is like that.
If Kiambu is like that, what do you think about Turkana and West Pokot?
Yes.
You see?
Yeah.
And also just lately that women also got the right to, obtain IDs and have their voting rights. But these same women are economically disempowered. I'll tell you again from my lived experience, and I thank Harrison here because he has actually activated me to now start relating to the lived experience. So as I was campaigning, still in Kiambu, majority of the people who came to listen to us in the rallies were women who are carrying children. And you know what the psychological effect of that is? To manipulate you that they have come to create a transactional economic relationship with you, not your policies. Therefore, it translates to the fact that these women are so economically vulnerable that they don't care whoever gets the position. And so in fact you would hear them tell you, we tupatie kenye unatupatia, tutaki kusikia story mingi. Yeah? So when you give them, you see them running on to the next political rally by your rival. So the question of economic empowerment and vulnerability by women is a great stumbling block towards their political empowerment. And so those are the issues that we need to address. And that's why I said we need to start now rewiring and re-engineering our education system so that we can see how to empower women from the onset. So that as they grow up, they know that they are expanded, the system is expanded for them to be accommodated.
Pretty much. Good. So just before, because we have 4 minutes, but just take 1.5 minutes now. Here's this. The women who've been elected as governors in this country have come up with something they call the G7. And this is what this is their vision, is to have women-led counties delivering on the promise of devolution, and together, I believe we can do it. That is according to Gladys Wanga, who said, I also encourage more women to take up political governance positions and not to shy away from venturing into their fields of interest. But they're saying, so what they're going to do, that in their counties, they're going to mentor more women, make sure that more women rise up to leadership positions in the hope that they'll go through the entire process, get exposed to the electorate and policy making, so that come 2027, the majority of women from this 7 counties specifically, where they're launching this initiative, that they're going to rise up to political leadership positions. Is that what we need?
So the G7 is about their counties, their specific counties.
Does it?
Because literally I didn't even know about it.
Yes.
I'm a woman leader by my own right.
Yes.
And I don't think them having been shining like the way Wanga has been, I don't think Wanga should be playing politics of just a county. There are 7 shining women. It should not be, the G7 should not be for their specific counties. They should stand for all women.
The fact that they're there.
The fact that they are there. And
they're saying this 7 counties should be an example that it can work.
Okay.
So let them start with the 7.
They should be pilot.
Yes, it's a pilot in the 7.
It's a good idea.
Yes.
And I support it. That is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And just to echo on what she was talking about, you asked the question of why haven't we had a woman president? There are many factors that it's not just, we could be here, we have the skills, we can talk, we can articulate things, but there's more to that. There is a cultural, there is the financial muscle. So women could be having all the skills, all the leadership skills that they could have, like what, and thank you so much, Harrison, for giving me the opportunity. Actually, the Miss President, I'm a beneficiary, and I competed against 1,000 women in the whole of Kenya. And what made them succeed is them being transparent and accountable. There was no corruption. We started from the ground. We went to the provincial level. You win until we came to Nairobi, the national boost won. And we continue like that. You don't know anyone. They didn't even know any of us. They just followed us from competing from the ground until we came there. So if things were done with accountability, so corruption is a big barrier. Women have no financial muscle. Other women, they do not have touch with the ground.
Yes.
You're just a Nairobian, you are an elite, you are a lawyer, but you know nothing about that woman down there in Turkana and Busia. So those women who have that intent should be, if they're in that G7,
yes,
we should see them on the ground, grass. Because the women on the ground, they're actually the women who are downtrodden. Because watu kama sisi hakuna mtu anaweza kutufinyilia akikwambia nini, you know you are right. But now, if they empower those, and not necessarily even with money, empower them, even intellectual empowerment.
Yes.
To know things, to know, yeah, this is your right. This is not a favor. Governor comes and gives you some handouts there and you start clapping for them. Or some MP comes and gives you, what do you call this money for? CDF.
Yes.
Oh, alimpatia CDF. My friend, CDF is your money. It is just a patron, just to, just to make sure it is divided fairly. So the minute they will be intellectually empowered, and that's what I would expect from people like the G7, and it's a great idea.
Yes.
Let them do it. Maybe we can also follow. Maybe next time we can also have a governor from my county.
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Yes, Harrison, you only have 45 seconds then.
Wow.
Can the media be an example of what needs to happen for us to achieve this entire conversation of gender parity in leadership?
I think more than being an example, the media can be an enabler.
Yes.
And the media can be an enabler in terms of, and we can talk about this until the cows come home. But the media can be an enabler by telling a more balanced story, painting a more balanced picture of leadership, making deliberate efforts, because affirmative action is is a reality in the political space, but it can also even be a reality in terms of media coverage. So making deliberate efforts to find women and to speak to women, to seek their opinion, and ensuring, and you've done well today, that in your panel we have more women than you have men. Can you continue to do that?
It's Women's Day.
Yeah. I know, but they can. It's a practice. Yes.
But with him, it's just because it's Women's Day. So
here is an example of what this is what the media can do.
That's why the few times she's been here, she's been 2 women and 1 down.
Yeah. So
she can attest to that.
So can you replicate this and have more women on your panels? Speak to more women. Speak out more women. Let's hear more women. Let's see more women on your platforms, and on whether it's visual or audio on social media. Let's see more women. Let's speak to more women. And finally,
finally,
you said that statistically we have more men than women. That's true. But I just wanted to remind you that if you look at the actual voter data of the 2022 election, male voters were 53%, female voters were 47%. To echo her point.
Despite the disparity.
Despite the fact that on the overall, there are more women. To echo her point, that women are disempowered.
Pretty much. Guess what? I would have loved us to continue this conversation. But Lucy, Alice, Harrison, thank you very much for coming by this morning. I wish we had more time. My director is kicking us out of the studio. But guess what? We do promise. So probably my producer can call Alice back tomorrow so that now she can have more time then. She got stuck in traffic. So now we can officially then celebrate International Women's Day tomorrow. 8th. The question that I want to put to you, just like Harrison is put to you, can we have more women? When you're seeking for views, when you're seeking for conversations, can you vote in your women? Just like Lucy said, they are qualified women, but you guys, you're not picking them. We take a tiny breather. Once we come back, it is Thursday. I'll be telling you on how to network like a professional once we come back.
Jamaa jo, mazena inflation jo na hii mafuta venye yamepanda jo, mmefika at the right time. Mimi nakwambia wachezaji saa hizi tu ni kutoka hapa, kuingia mtaa, kutengeneza sima, wadishifiti, alafu tutane grau.
Leo tuko katika center inaitwa Kimta, ambapo hapa ni sehemu ambapo wanafunzi ama vijana wadogo wanakuja hapa kusoma, wanakuja hapa kukuza talanta yao, wanakuja pia kujiinua kielimu.
Now through Kimta and the groups like Tatua Tatu, through pads, wasichana wataendelea kuendea shule vizuri, at the same time watakuwa healthy.
Yote ni kwa hisani ya Tatua Foundation. Na wakati wote ambapo unacheza Tatua Tatu, kumbuka kwamba 25% inakuja kusaidia masuala kama haya. Kwa hivyo endelea kucheza Tatua Tatu.
Hata wewe rafiki, amka kumekucha. Tunataka kuangazia safety, biashara inayohusiana na usalama kazini.
Watu wa pikipiki ni nyinyi tunaongelesha, tunawajali. Baridi, hata magoti haiwezi ingia baridi.
Haiwezi